Hey, this is Anthony Veltri, and today I want to talk to you about a topic that people tend to avoid. People talk about success all the time. They talk about how can we be successful? What habits can we put into place in order to be successful in our personal life, in our career, etc. But what I want to talk to you about today is how we can make people fail. Let's do a thought experiment right now about how we could, if we were hired to work for a client that we just did not want to work for, did not want to see them succeed, but we had to work for them. What could we do to make them fail? And here are the sort of the boundaries, the guidelines that I'm going to set forth here. So in this thought experiment, number one, you have to actually use your best effort. You can't hold anything back. You can't give them wrong information. You can't give them information that will be that will come back to you as something that was not a best practice. You can't purposely sabotage them, in other words. Number two, this has to be the same level of effort that you would expend for your best client that you want to see succeed. So already right here, we're kind of limited because we can't give them information that's not good. We have to give them our best stuff. The third thing in this little thought experiment is that we have to treat this as though when all is said and done and they have failed, they'll still come back to us and thank us for our time, meaning that the client who we've taken on to purposely make sure that they don't succeed will look at the efforts that we put forth and say, you were really helpful. You put out a lot of effort for us. I'm sorry that we didn't get the results that we wanted to, but it was a pleasure working with you. So those are kind of some interesting constraints right there, because you're going to give them your best information. You're going to give them your best effort. And in the end, you have to guarantee, or you have to do all you can to guarantee that they are not successful in their outcome. So I thought about this for a while, and here's what I would personally do to make sure that somebody failed. As I said, we're going to make sure that we give them the best possible effort, which means we are going to do the same intake process that we would normally do. We're going to have our discovery sessions. We're going to see what the goals of the client are. We're going to make sure that not only do we understand the goals, but that we let the client know that we understand why those goals are important to them. Sometimes, clients need clarifications too on why that goal is important to them or to that organization. So from that point, not only are we going to have a very good understanding of what's important to the client, but the client is also going to feel very understood by us. Now, we're still going to be giving the same great information, the best information that we possibly can in whatever your industry is. But how do we now make it so that the client won't use that information? If this is the best possible information out there, how can we make it, and we're giving it to them, how can we make it so that that information will either A, not be acted on, or B, will be acted on in such a way as to make it ineffective? Here, in my experience, is how we can do this. But before I tell you from my empirical evidence, I want to tell you a little story. So there is a season tickets to the football stadium. This is a great study that was done. And the season tickets were sold at varying prices, and basically for the same seats. And what happened was they studied and saw who would come back and who actually attended the most games. And the people who paid nothing, who were given the tickets for free, or who paid a very low price for the tickets, not only did they not attend very many games, but they didn't perceive that they had gotten a good value out of their tickets. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, people who paid the most for the tickets, not only did they attend the most games, but they also reported that they perceived that they got the most value out of their season ticket pass. So with this little piece of information, How can we now make it so that our client is not going to use our information? How they're going to essentially sabotage themselves? Well, ultimately, if you have to give them your best information, if you have to give them the best in terms of your execution on whatever it is you'll be consulting them on, and if you want to be thanked afterwards for it, what you can do is you can offer to do that work for them on a pro bono or extremely discounted basis. Now, as we just discussed with the season ticket football example, what's going to happen is the client is going to lower their perceived value of what it is that you are offering them. And that's what happens on the outset. And that it's not going to be something that they are aware of, but ultimately they're not only devaluing your services, but they're devaluing the perceived utility of the solution that you're offering them. And if you know that that solution is the best thing to help them achieve their particular goal, then they are subconsciously devaluing the one thing that's going to be most beneficial to them in terms of getting them where they need to be. But here is the thing that is really going to give you the other advantage in terms of making sure they don't reach their goal. By not charging them, because as humans, our desires are infinite, but resources are limited. So if you don't charge them for the work, then what happens is that money that they would have had to budget and would have been retained by you, would have been tied up, encumbering your services, that money is now available to spend on other things. And so now what happens is they can dilute their efforts. Your client will dilute their efforts. And instead of being focused on your solution, they're going to be shopping around for other things, essentially diluting the amount of effectiveness because their effort is going to be spread over multiple areas. And if you've ever tried to accomplish a project, you know that if you multitask too much or if you dilute your efforts too much, then what happens is you don't end up accomplishing either goal. So what will then happen in that instance is your project, you'll do all the work on your project. It will look like you're putting a great effort in, but because the client is not invested in it, they're not going to show up when you need them to. They're not going to be there on time. They're not going to come prepared. They will end up taking a little bit of responsibility for why they're not being successful. And the reason they're not being successful is because they're not invested. So they'll thank you for your effort, even though they didn't show up. Now, they're going to be spending that other effort and other money on something else as well. But because you know that your solution is the best, they are now spending that money on something that is second rate. Maybe not going to help them get where they want to, certainly not as efficiently or effectively as what it is that you're doing. The reason I'm presenting all this to you is if you are ever approached by a nonprofit, by someone who wants coaching or mentoring, they're just starting out, and they want you to either discount your rate substantially or they want you to do something for them pro bono, use this video as an example. And, if they request, hey, can you do this for us pro bono? Say, I really want you to succeed in what it is that you're doing. I want to see your organization be successful. And so I can't, in good conscience, do that for free because it's going to inhibit your ability to actually be successful with that. And then they're going to, of course, ask you what you mean by that. And you can explain this to them. And you know what? If they still want it for free, then they're probably not going to be a great long-term client to work with anyway. So that's just a little piece of information there. I thought I would try and spin something a little bit differently. I'd be very interested to hear from you in a time where you put something out there. You gave someone either a discount on something or you did some pro bono work and you saw that they weren't interested. You saw that they did not get the same results that your paying clients got. And that was frustrating to you. I'd love to hear those stories. And I'd love to hear what you want me to talk about next. So if you have something that's really kind of grinding your gears or causing you some frustration, let me know and we'll talk about it. This has been Anthony Veltri, and I hope you have a great day.